Hey everybody, number 23 on the Criterion collection is somewhat surprising to me, I suppose. Robocop. Directed by Paul Verhoeven from the United States in 1987. Robocop is a fun movie. It's a good movie, it's a fun movie. I think, though, it's kind of a media literacy test. Right? There are people who watch movies and don't understand any of the subtext. Forget about, analyzing for, oh, see, in this scene when she loses her dress, it's the loss of her innocence from her childhood, like that kind of deep dive. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about watching Fight Club and thinking that Tyler Durden's not the bad guy. Or watching The Boys and not thinking Homelander's the bad guy because you can't read subtext. There is subtext there, to Robocop because it also satirizes capitalism. I mean, the big enemy. Sorry, people might not have seen Robocop, I guess. Robocop is set in the not too distant future, next Sunday, AD, in Chicago, although it was filmed in Dallas, near where I grew up, so that's funny. A private corporation has been buying. It now owns the police force. It's trying to sell to the military. It owns churches. It owns a lot of stuff that corporations shouldn't own. And they're testing with new law enforcement methods because crime has gone amok. And so there are two competing branches at this company. One wants to create a killer robot, and one wants to turn police officers into cyborgs. And so Peter Weller, who I love, plays a police officer who gets brutally murdered. And so they turn his corpse into a cyborg. The whole thing, though, the company behind, and then of course it's he kind of he struggles to be a good cop and to come to terms with the fact that he is basically a dead cop who has just a handful of memories or feelings about his past and trying to process those. That's the movie. The corporation, is very evil. Of course, they make the cop, but they make the cop so that he can't arrest people who work for the corporation. A lot of statements on capitalism here that people may have missed out on. And it's done very well. And even the violence in this movie is a bit over the top, but to such an extent that it feels like it is satirizing action films, right? Because in real life, when a cop shoots his gun one time, he's got a ton of paperwork to fill out. He's got to go to like therapy. He's got to check in his gun. There's a whole... So Robocop just walking into the middle of a gang territory and just mercilessly gunning down 20 bad guys is silly. It's ridiculous. It's also cool, but it's ridiculous. So those are the subtexts that are going on here, is the glorification of violence and the overreach of capitalism. The last thing I want to talk about, because we've talked before about practical effects versus special effects, because of the age of this movie, 87, there is not CG, right? The effects are practical. There's two really noticeable effects. First is Robocop himself. It's very good. It's very well done, especially when he takes the faceplate off. You can actually see his face, but his face looks a little bit stretched, and you can see all the circuitry and everything going underneath his face. Obviously, that's just makeup, but the fact that they make it look like it goes underneath his face is a very impressive effect. I'm pretty sure they do it just by extending his face just a little bit with makeup, and then they can feed the bits and pieces into that extension. And then Ed 209, which is the big military robot, they animate. It looks like Harryhausen claymation style. So basically they just still motion photographied this thing moving, which is... It's less impressive than the practical effects because you can tell that it's basically stop motion animation, but it doesn't look terrible. That is one of the great things about practical effects is they age very well. Whereas, computer special effects from a decade ago, you can tell that it looks like it's from a decade ago because we keep evolving and improving. But practical effects, they age very well. So that was our little stint of like 8 English language films. We're going back to Japan, then to France, and then we've got, what, 4 more English language films? Wow, we're starting to skew American here, and United Kingdom. But next time, we are returning to the land of Japan. 1963, returning director Akira Kurosawa with a film High and Low. I will see you guys there.